Sometimes I go on the internet and I see this phrase thrown around quite often. They're a bunch of NPCs, or in other words, they're like a bunch of characters in a video game. I know that the phrase might be used as a joke and should not be taken seriously, but there's no denying that a lot of us tend to believe in the idea that some part of the population is conscious or has free will, while the rest of the world is not. I'm here to propose the idea that we are all NPCs. I'm dead serious. Stop trying to pretend that some of us are more awake or more conscious than others, because there's no such thing. The debate as to whether or not free will exists has been around for the longest time. Scientists are coming out to propose that maybe we don't have free will. And it feels like a contradiction, because if that's the case, how would you explain the self-awareness or the direct experience of existence that is coming into our consciousness at every passing moment? Ask yourself the question, am I existing? And you'll be able to draw the conclusion very quickly that you do have free will. Or so it seems. You see, although a lot of us are coming to terms with the idea that we don't have free will, we'd still have to enforce the notion that we're all in control of our actions and thoughts, because it is necessary for survival. If everyone can deny their own free will, then no criminals will ever go to prison, and society will quickly turn into a giant free-for-all in a perpetual UFC cage match with no referee. So what is free will? Free will is when you have the ability to choose one thing over another, and you're forced to face the consequences of your actions. Think of the time when you are stuck between choosing to do something productive, like doing your homework or writing a report for your job, and something that's obvious bad for you, like binge watching on Netflix, playing video games, or making mental videos on YouTube. You know that the first choice is going to be good for you because it will help you learn something, live more responsibly, or at least make you feel like you've achieved something in your life, whereas the other option is not going to benefit you in any way further down the line. This thought process usually helps you make the right decision, and it's something you'd call free will. But is it really free will? Go back to those moments again and re-experience the thoughts and emotions you'd felt. At this point, you've probably realized that the action you'd made was probably done out of fear. You only did the right thing because you didn't want to deal with the future consequences that the bad choice had in store for you. People work hard and start saving money in their 20s because they're afraid of being poor when they're old and sick. People turn to charity, religion, and spirituality because they're afraid of either death or the potential suffering that awaits them in the next life. Almost every responsible action that we make is driven by our logical thoughts and emotions. And who gave us these thoughts and fed us these emotions? Did we come up with them ourselves? Or was it the product of the conditioning of our biology and our culture? If I asked you why you wanted to make the right choice, you'd tell me it's because you didn't want to get into trouble. You'd go on to explain further that you didn't want to get into trouble because you didn't want to suffer, or you didn't want others to suffer. Maybe you didn't want to disappoint your loved ones and hurt their feelings. And who gave you those answers? You see, I want to share with you the idea that this whole process of you coming into contact with negative experiences, knowing what they are and doing whatever you can to avoid or prevent them, is the product of your own natural conditioning. Every thought and feeling in your head is the result of the events that had occurred in the past. Just like all of the events that are happening around you, they are all the result of all the things that have happened prior in your life. You're not supposed to romanticize or embrace suffering either. Bad things are meant to be avoided because that's simply what they do. But this whole process of becoming self-aware is also part of the script. Nature rolls the dice, and the numbers are the thoughts, emotions, and life circumstances that dictate the outcome of your action. At the same time, free will can exist in the sense that we don't know which decision we're going to make and how we'll end up in the future. When you leave a child alone in a room with a chocolate bar, it's very easy to guess which one of the two will come out of that room alive. Yet there's always a chance that the child understands the concept of delayed gratification, and he or she will abstain from eating the confection so that they won't go to hell when they die like their parents had said they would. But one thing you need to understand is that the decision is dependent entirely on factors such as the child's upbringing and personality. If the child had run into a situation, whether positive or negative, that influenced his or her future decisions, where they'd learn to restrain themselves from sweets that are suspiciously positioned in front of a studio recorder in an empty, acoustically treated room, the giant poster on the wall scribbled, "Do not eat or else" in red liquid, then ultimately that situation would have been the one who carried out the final decision of the child. Free will can only exist when you don't know for certain what future will be. This is also why some people bank on the idea that free will emerges from situations where you make the right decisions, even though the odds are against you. It's always easier to give to the poor when you're a billionaire, or someone who's unattached to material possessions, than to help the poor when you're broke and attached to life. But when something extremely unpredictable happens, such as when you decide to give $5 to a homeless person, even though you only have 10 in your pocket, free will would come into play in these kinds of situations. What about direct experiences? Aren't they an indicator of free will? I can't disprove the existence of direct experiences. When you think to yourself the thought, "I'm existing," you'll be able to get into the present moment. However, you're only thinking the thought because either someone's told you to do it, or something else has made you do it. You're not the doer of your actions. You're simply existing as things happen around you. Thoughts and emotions happen to you, and your actions carry themselves out on their own. It's like when Alan Watts said, "You're the world experiencing itself." Although the answer to what you truly are and your relationship to the world will never truly be known, how can the world know itself if it is infinite? If free will is an illusion, does it mean you can do whatever you want? Hurt others, then blame it all on natural conditioning? Unfortunately, we can't do whatever we want and disregard human life because the law of karma is perpetually governing our existence when we assume the form of localized consciousness. You've all heard the phrase, "We are one." Yet since the illusion of separation is so strong and persistent, there is a chance that an individual will never recognize his or her oneness with the world and will act from a place of separation. As long as you exist as a finite being inside a larger structure, it will be almost impossible to realize your own oneness with existence and recognize that the world is your body. This is why the law of karma exists, so that when you hurt others, their suffering will manifest in your own direct experience, either at a later time or in the next life, because you've always existed and will always exist. Just like the universe, which has no beginning or end, your consciousness will always be around, changing from one form to another. It's ironic how free will doesn't exist yet. You'll always be held responsible for your actions. Whenever you have to make a difficult decision in your life, remind yourself of the fact that you're not defined by your thoughts, emotions, words, or actions. You're not in control and will never be. It's all cause and effect, and you're role-playing. Always strive to do the right thing and always do what you think is best, but at the same time recognize that the rules are completely made up and arbitrary, and enjoy the ride.